Billionaire returned to his ex's house after 4 years, and a child ran to him with a familiar smile. Before we begin, drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from, and once the story ends, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. Oh, and make sure to follow our channel for more stories like this. Now, sit back and enjoy every detail. The black Bentley Mulsanne moved through the familiar streets of Westfield like a ghost returning to haunt its past. Leon Hargrave, 39, adjusted his Armani cufflinks as he gazed out the tinted window at the neighborhood he once called home. 4 years had changed everything and nothing at the same time. The manicured lawns still gleamed under the afternoon sun. The colonial houses still stood in perfect rows, each one a testament to American suburban prosperity. But Leon felt like a stranger in his own memory. "Sir, we've arrived," his driver announced, pulling up to a white 2-story house with navy blue shutters. Leon's chest tightened. The house looked exactly the same, down to the lavender bushes Sinea had planted along the walkway. She always said lavender brought peace. He wondered if it had brought her any peace after he left. He stepped out of the car, his 6'2" frame imposing against the quiet suburban backdrop. His dark hair was shorter now, more refined, and his emerald eyes held a weight they hadn't carried before. The tailored charcoal suit spoke of success, but the slight tremor in his hands betrayed his nervousness. 4 years in Germany had made him richer than he'd ever imagined possible. His real estate empire now spanned 3 continents. He could buy this entire neighborhood without blinking. But standing here, he felt as poor as the day he'd left. Leon walked to the front gate, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the stone path. He pressed the intercom button and waited. "Hello?" came a voice through the speaker. Not Sinea's voice, but older, with a slight Spanish accent. "I'm looking for Sinea Alves," Leon said, his voice steady despite the hurricane in his chest. "One moment, please." The gate buzzed open, and Leon stepped into the front yard. The garden was more beautiful than he remembered. New rose bushes lined the pathway, and a small swing set sat under an oak tree that had grown considerably taller. A swing set. Leon's brow furrowed. Sinea had never mentioned wanting children during their marriage. She was always focused on her architecture career, designing sustainable housing projects that would change how people lived. Children had been a someday conversation, always pushed to tomorrow. The front door opened, and a middle-aged Latina woman emerged. "Senor Hargrave?" Leon nodded, surprised she recognized him. "I am Carmen, the housekeeper. Senora Sinea is in her studio," but before Carmen could finish, the sound of running footsteps echoed from inside the house. A small boy burst through the door, his dark hair bouncing as he ran toward the gate where Leon stood. The world stopped. The child, no more than 3 or 4 years old, had Leon's exact features in miniature. The same strong jawline, the same honey-colored eyes that seemed to hold galaxies, the same determined set to his small shoulders. He wore a tiny blue polo shirt and khaki shorts, his sneakers lighting up with each step. "Hi," the boy called out, his voice bright with curiosity. "Are you here to see Mama?" Leon's mouth went dry. His knees nearly buckled. He gripped the gatepost to steady himself, his knuckles white against the painted wood. Leon's voice cracked. He cleared his throat and crouched down to the child's eye level. "Yes, I am. What's your name?" "Noah," the boy announced proudly. "Noah Alves. I'm 3 and 2 months old. Mama says I'm very smart for my age. 3 years and 2 months. The math hit Leon like a physical blow. He left exactly 4 years ago, which meant, "Noah, come back here, sweetheart." Leon's head snapped up at the sound of the voice that had haunted his dreams for 4 years. Sinea appeared in the doorway and his breath caught in his throat. She was more beautiful than his memory had dared preserve. Her auburn hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders, and her green eyes, once so full of love when they looked at him, now held a mixture of shock and something else he couldn't quite identify. She wore a simple white sundress that highlighted her graceful figure, and her bare feet suggested she'd been working in her home studio. But it was the way she immediately moved to place a protective hand on Noah's shoulder that made Leon's chest ache with a pain so sharp it was almost physical. "Leon," she said quietly, her voice carefully controlled. "Sinea." He stood slowly, never taking his eyes off her face. "You look—" "What are you doing here?" she interrupted, her tone polite but distant. Noah looked between them with the innocent curiosity of a child. "Do you know each other?" Sinea's hand tightened slightly on Noah's shoulder. "Go inside with Carmen, baby. I need to talk to this gentleman." "But I want to meet him," Noah protested. "He has nice eyes like mine." The words hung in the air like an accusation. Leon saw Sinea's face pale slightly, and he felt his world tilt on its axis. "Noah," Por favor, Carmen said gently, taking the boy's hand. Come help me make your afternoon snack. As Carmen led Noah inside, the boy waved enthusiastically at Leon. Bye. Will you still be here when I come back? Leon's throat was too tight to answer. He could only watch as his son, disappeared into the house. The silence that followed was deafening. Sania crossed her arms over her chest, a defensive gesture he remembered well. You can't just show up here after 4 years, Leon. Not like this. Is he mine? The question escaped before he could stop it, raw and desperate. Sania's eyes flashed with pain and anger. You lost the right to ask that question when you walked away without a word. Sania, please. No. Her voice was firm, but he could hear the tremor beneath it. You don't get to come back and demand answers. You don't get to waltz in here in your expensive suit looking like you own the world and expect me to. I never stopped thinking about you, Leon said quietly. The words hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they wanted to cross. Sania's composure cracked for just a moment, and in that instant, Leon saw the woman he'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. Brilliant, passionate, vulnerable. But the moment passed, and the walls went back up. Thinking isn't the same as staying, Leon. Thinking isn't the same as fighting for what you love. She turned to go back inside, but Leon's voice stopped her. I had to leave. She paused without turning around. Had to? Or chose to? My company was failing. Everything we'd built was crumbling. I was losing millions every day and I couldn't let you watch me fall apart. So you decided for both of us. Now she did turn, and her eyes blazed with 4 years of suppressed fury and hurt. You decided I was too weak to handle your problems. You decided our marriage wasn't worth fighting for. You decided to run instead of trust me. It wasn't about trust. Then what was it about, Leon? Because I've had 4 years to wonder and I still don't understand how the man who promised to love me forever could leave a note on the kitchen counter and disappear. The pain in her voice was unbearable. Leon stepped closer to the porch, desperate to bridge the distance between them. I was drowning, Sania. Everything I'd worked for was gone. I couldn't even afford to keep this house. I had creditors calling every hour, investors pulling out, employees looking at me like I'd betrayed them. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Angry, desperate, broken. I couldn't let you see me like that. So instead you let me think you'd stopped loving me. The simple statement hit him like a physical blow. I never stopped loving you, he whispered. Not for a single day. Sania's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Love without courage isn't love, Leon. It's cowardice dressed up in pretty words. Before he could respond, Noah's voice called from inside the house. Mama, Carmen says I can have cookies if you say yes. Sania wiped her eyes quickly and called back. 1 cookie before dinner, baby. When she looked at Leon again, her expression had hardened into resolve. You should go. Sania, please. Give me a chance to what? Explain why you abandoned your pregnant wife? The words hit the air like a slap. Leon's world tilted completely off its axis. You were pregnant when I left? Sania's laugh was bitter. I found out 2 days after you disappeared. Took a pregnancy test because I'd been feeling sick, thinking it was just stress from your sudden departure. But no, it was our baby growing inside me while you were on a plane to Germany. Leon felt like he'd been punched in the chest. Sania, I didn't know. If I had known, what, you would have stayed? You would have chosen us over your precious pride? Yes, he said without hesitation. Yes, I would have stayed. But you didn't know because you didn't care enough to find out. You didn't care enough to have a real conversation about what was happening. You just ran. Noah appeared in the window, pressing his small hands against the glass and waving at Leon. The sight of his son, made Leon's heart clench with a pain so acute he could barely breathe. I tried to find you, Sania continued, her voice breaking slightly. When I realized I was pregnant, I tried to call, to email, to reach you through your business contacts. But you'd cut all ties so completely it was like you'd never existed. Your assistant said you'd given strict instructions not to be contacted about personal matters. Leon closed his eyes, remembering those instructions. He'd been so focused on rebuilding, so determined to return successful, that he'd shut out everything from his past, including the possibility that Sania might need him. I was trying to rebuild everything so I could come back to you worthy of. I didn't need you to be worthy, Leon. I needed you to be present. The simplicity of her words shattered something inside him. Noah tapped on the window, and Sania turned to wave at him. In that moment, Leon saw something he'd missed before, the way her hand moved to rest protectively over her still flat stomach, a gesture he now realized was purely maternal instinct developed over years of raising their son alone. Does he know? Leon asked quietly. About me? Sania's shoulders sagged slightly. He knows his father lives far away and couldn't be here. I never told him you chose to leave. I didn't want him to grow up feeling unwanted. The generosity of that gesture, protecting him even in his absence, made Leon feel smaller than he'd ever felt in his life. Can I? Leon's voice cracked. Can I meet him? Properly? Sinea studied his face for a long moment. In her eyes, he saw the war between the woman who had once loved him completely and the mother who would protect her child at any cost. He's not a consolation prize, Leon. He's not something you get to claim just because you came back successful. I know. I've missed 3 years of his life. I've missed everything. Yes, she said simply. You have. The weight of those lost years settled on Leon's shoulders like a physical burden. First steps, first words, first birthdays, all experienced by Sinea alone while he was building an empire that suddenly felt meaningless. I want to make it right, he said. You can't make it right. You can only choose what happens from here. Before Leon could ask what she meant, the front door opened again and Noah bounded out, a chocolate chip cookie in his small hand. Mama, can the nice man stay for dinner? Carmen is making her special chicken. Leon looked at Noah, really looked at him, and felt his heart expand and break simultaneously. His son was perfect, bright, confident, joyful. Everything Leon had been before the weight of the world had taught him to be careful with his heart. I don't think, Sinea began. Please, Mama. He seems lonely. Out of the mouths of babes. Leon's throat tightened. Sinea looked between her son and Leon, clearly torn. Finally, she sighed. One dinner. But after that, we need to have a very long conversation about what this means and what happens next. Leon nodded, not trusting his voice. Noah cheered and ran to Leon, grabbing his much larger hand with his small, sticky one. Come on. I want to show you my room. I have a race car bed and everything. As Leon allowed himself to be pulled toward the house, toward a life he'd walked away from and could never fully reclaim, he caught Sinea's eye. In that look, he saw everything. The love that had never fully died, the hurt that might never fully heal, and the hope that maybe, just maybe, they could build something new from the ashes of what they'd lost. But he also saw a warning. This was his one chance to prove he was the man she'd once believed him to be. The question was, had he learned enough in 4 years of self-imposed exile to become the father Noah deserved, and the partner Sinea needed? Or was he still the same man who had chosen pride over love, success over presence? As Noah led him up the front steps, chattering excitedly about his toys and his friends and his favorite bedtime stories, Leon realized that the empire he'd built in Germany meant nothing compared to the family he'd lost here. The real question was it too late to build something that mattered? What would you do if you discovered you'd walked away from everything that truly mattered? Share your thoughts below. Your participation means everything to our channel. Noah's room was the explosion of childhood wonder that made Leon's chest ache with missed memories. The race car bed dominated the space, complete with working headlights that Noah demonstrated with obvious pride. Toy cars lined shelves on every wall, and crayon drawings covered a bulletin board. Stick figures of a woman and a small boy, always just the two of them. This is my favorite, Noah announced, holding up a red Ferrari model. Mama says my daddy might have a car like this someday when he comes back from his trip. Leon's throat constricted. Even in his absence, Sinea had painted him as someone worth waiting for, someone who would return. The generosity of that lie, and it was a lie, because Leon hadn't been on a trip, he'd been running, made him feel simultaneously grateful and unworthy. It's beautiful, Leon managed, taking the small car with hands that trembled slightly. Do you like fast cars? I love them. Mama says I'm too little to drive, but when I'm big like you, I'm gonna have a red one just like this. Noah's eyes sparkled with dreams. Do you have a fast car? I do, Leon admitted. It's black though. Black is cool too. Can I see it sometime? The innocent question hung in the air like a promise Leon wasn't sure he had the right to make. That depends on your mama. Mama says yes to most things if I ask nicely and help with dishes. Leon couldn't help but smile. His first genuine smile since arriving. Is that your secret? Yep. And if I eat all my vegetables? Mama likes vegetables a lot. Boys, Sinea's voice called from downstairs. Dinner's ready. Noah grabbed Leon's hand again, his small fingers wrapping around Leon's index finger with complete trust. Come on. Carmen makes the best chicken ever. She uses a special sauce that's a secret family recipe. As they headed downstairs, Leon caught sight of family photos lining the hallway. Noah's first birthday, Sinea holding a cake with a single candle, her smile bright but her eyes tired. Noah's first steps, captured mid-wobble in what looked like this very hallway. Christmas morning, Noah drowning in wrapping paper while Sinia watched from the couch in pajamas. In every photo, Noah was the center of a universe of love, but that universe only had one star, his mother. The dining room had been redecorated since Leon lived here. Gone was the formal mahogany set they'd chosen together, replaced by a warm oak table with mismatched chairs that somehow worked perfectly. Children's artwork served as decoration, and a mason jar filled with wildflowers sat in the center. It felt more like a home than the house had ever felt when he'd lived here. Carmen had set 4 places, and the smell of roasted chicken with herbs filled the air. Leon noticed the setting was casual but thoughtful. Cloth napkins, real glasses, the good silverware they'd received as a wedding gift. "Sit by me," Noah announced, patting the chair next to his booster seat. Leon looked to Sinia, who nodded almost imperceptibly. As he sat down, he was struck by the domesticity of it all. The family dinner he'd never thought he wanted, with the woman he'd loved and lost, and the son he'd never known existed. "Noah, what do we say before we eat?" Sinia prompted gently. "Thank you for our food and for people who share it with us," Noah recited carefully, then added, "And thank you for bringing Leon to have dinner with us." Sinia's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Leon felt heat rise in his chest at hearing his name in his son's prayer. "How's the chicken?" Carmen asked, bustling around the table with more rolls. "Perfect as always," Sinia said warmly. "Thank you for staying late." "De nada, mija. This little one ate all his green beans yesterday, so he earned the special sauce." Carmen ruffled Noah's hair affectionately. Leon watched the easy interaction between the women, realizing this was Noah's world. Stable, loving, full of people who chose to be here every day. He was the outsider in his own son's life. "Leon," Noah said around a mouthful of chicken. "What do you do for work?" "I build buildings," Leon said simply. "Like with blocks?" "Sort of, but much bigger blocks. And they become places where people live and work." Noah's eyes went wide. "Do you build skyscrapers? Like the really tall ones?" "Sometimes." "That's so cool. Mama builds houses too, but she draws them first. Want to see?" Before Leon could respond, Noah was scrambling down from his chair and running to a corner where architectural plans were rolled up in a basket. "Noah, those are Mama's work papers," Sinia called after him. "But they're pretty, and Leon builds things too, so he'll like them." Noah returned with a partially unrolled blueprint and climbed back into his chair. "Look, Mama designed this house for a family with 3 kids. She made special rooms just for playing and reading." Leon studied the plans, his architect's eye immediately recognizing Sinia's distinctive style. Sustainable materials, maximized natural light, spaces that flowed organically from one to another. But there was something new in her work, a warmth and livability that hadn't been there before. "This is beautiful," he said honestly. "You've grown as a designer." Sinia looked surprised by the genuine admiration in his voice. "Thank you. I've been focusing more on family homes lately. Sustainable living that actually works for real families, not just design magazines. Mama says houses should make people happy, not just pretty," Noah added sagely. Leon looked around the dining room again, understanding now why it felt so different. This wasn't designed for show. It was designed for living, for a mother and son creating memories together. "You've succeeded," Leon said quietly, and Sinia's cheeks flushed slightly. "Tell him about the playground house," Noah urged excitedly. "The what?" Leon asked. Sinia hesitated, then said, "I designed a small residential community with shared green spaces and integrated play areas. The idea is that children can play safely while parents can work from home offices with clear sight lines. Like a modern village concept." "Exactly." Her face lit up as she talked about her work. "Kids need community, and parents need flexibility. Why should those be mutually exclusive?" Leon found himself leaning forward, genuinely engaged. This was the woman he'd fallen in love with, passionate, innovative, seeing solutions where others saw problems. But there was a depth to her now, a maternal wisdom that made her even more compelling. "Have you found investors?" Sinia's expression cooled slightly. "I'm working on it. It's harder to get backing for family-focused projects. Investors prefer luxury developments." Leon opened his mouth to say he could help, then caught himself. He had no right to swoop in and solve her problems with money. He'd lost that privilege when he'd chosen to leave. "I'm sure you'll find the right partners," he said instead. Noah had finished his chicken and was now carefully arranging his green beans in a pattern on his plate. "Mama, can Leon see my fort after dinner?" "What fort?" Leon asked. "I built a blanket fort in the living room. It's got 3 rooms and a secret entrance." "That sounds impressive." "It is. Mama helped me hang the sheets really high so I can stand up inside." Leon imagined Sinia balancing on chairs, helping Noah construct his architectural masterpiece, and felt another pang of missed moments. Maybe Leon has to go home soon, Sinea said carefully. Noah's face fell. But he just got here, and I didn't show him my cars yet or my books or— It's okay, Leon said gently. I'd like to see your fort, if that's all right with your mama. Sinea met his eyes across the table. In that look, he saw her wrestling with conflicting impulses. The mother who wanted to protect her son from potential disappointment, and the woman who remembered what it felt like to love this man. One fort tour, she said finally. But then Leon needs to go home and you need a bath and bedtime story. Noah cheered and launched into an elaborate description of his fort's architectural features. As Leon listened to his son's excited chatter, he noticed Sinea watching them both with an expression he couldn't quite read. After dinner, Noah led them to the living room, where an impressive blanket construction dominated the space. Sheets and quilts were draped over chairs and the coffee table, creating a cozy, cave-like structure. You have to crawl through here, Noah explained, demonstrating the entrance. This is the main room and this is my bedroom, and this is where I keep my cars. Leon got down on his hands and knees, his expensive suit forgotten, and crawled through the tunnel. Inside the fort, string lights created a magical glow, and pillows made it comfortable enough for a grown man to sit cross-legged. This is incredible, Leon said, genuinely amazed. You're quite the architect. Noah beamed. Mama says I get it from my daddy. She says he's really good at building things too. The words hit Leon like a physical blow. Even in his absence, Sinea had made sure Noah was proud of his heritage, had given him something to aspire to. Your mama is very smart, Leon managed. From outside the fort, Sinea's voice was soft. Noah, time to start cleaning up. You have preschool tomorrow. 5 more minutes? Noah. Leon recognized the parental tone that brooked no argument. Come on, buddy. Your mama's right. And good architects always clean up their work sites. Noah giggled at being called buddy, and Leon's heart clenched. How many nicknames had he missed? How many inside jokes and bedtime rituals and ordinary moments that made up a childhood? As they emerged from the fort, Leon found Sinea had been sitting on the couch watching them. Her expression was unguarded for just a moment, and he saw something that gave him hope. She was seeing him not as the man who had left, but as the father Noah deserved. Okay, mijo, she said to Noah. Bath time. Say goodnight to Leon. Noah hugged Leon impulsively, his small arms barely reaching around Leon's waist. Will you come back tomorrow? Leon looked over Noah's head to Sinea, asking permission he wasn't sure he deserved. We'll see, she said carefully. Leon and I need to talk about grown-up things first. Noah nodded solemnly, accepting this adult logic. Okay, but I hope you come back. I like you. I like you too, Leon said, his voice rough with emotion. As Sinea led Noah upstairs for his bath, Leon stood alone in the living room, surrounded by the evidence of the life he'd missed. Family photos on the mantel, Noah's artwork on the refrigerator visible through the kitchen doorway, a basket of toys in the corner. He picked up one of Noah's books from the coffee table, Goodnight Moon, and imagined Sini reading it every night, doing all the voices, being both mother and father to their son. When Sinea returned 20 minutes later, Leon was still holding the book. He wants you to read to him tomorrow night, she said quietly. I told him maybe. Leon set the book down carefully. Sinea, Not yet, she interrupted. He might be listening. Let me make sure he's asleep, then we can talk. She disappeared upstairs again, and Leon heard the murmur of voices, a brief giggle, then silence. When she came back down, her expression was all business. We need to set ground rules, she said without preamble. If you're going to be in his life, you can't disappear again. I won't let you break his heart the way you broke mine. I won't leave again. How can I believe that? How can I trust that the first time things get difficult you won't run again? Leon had no answer that would satisfy her, because she was right to doubt him. Words were cheap. He'd promised to love her forever once, and then he'd left. I can't prove it to you with words, he said finally. I can only prove it with actions day by day. Sinea studied his face for a long moment. He's everything to me, Leon. Everything. If you hurt him, I will never forgive you. I understand. Do you? Because he's already asking when you're coming back. He's already imagining what it would be like to have a daddy. And if you decide this is too hard or too complicated or interferes with your business empire, it won't. You don't know that. You don't know what it's like to put someone else's needs first every single day, no matter what. The accusation stung because it was true. Then teach me. Sinea blinked, clearly not expecting that response. Teach me how to be his father. Teach me how to put him first. I know I don't deserve a second chance, but he deserves to know his dad. Before she could respond, Leon's phone buzzed. He glanced at it instinctively, a habit from years of never being disconnected, and saw 17 missed calls from his assistant. Sinea noticed his attention shift, and her expression hardened. Go ahead. Take it. Some merger probably needs your immediate attention. Leon looked at the phone, then deliberately turned it off and put it in his pocket. Nothing is more important than this conversation. Pretty words again? Then let me prove it. Leon stepped closer. Not close enough to intimidate, but close enough that she could see the sincerity in his eyes. Give me a chance to show you I've changed. Sinea wrapped her arms around herself, a gesture of self-protection he remembered from their worst fights. I don't know if I can do this, Leon. I don't know if I can watch you get close to him and then leave again. What if I don't leave? You will. When it gets hard, when he has nightmares or gets sick or throws tantrums in grocery stores, when real life interferes with your perfect comeback story, you'll leave. What if I don't? He repeated quietly. Sinea stared at him for a long moment, and Leon saw the war in her eyes, hope battling with hard-earned wisdom, love wrestling with self-preservation. Finally, she sighed. 1 week. You can see him 3 times this week. Supervised visits. If you miss even one, if you're late, if you take a business call during his time, I won't. Then you don't get to devastate him slowly. You leave and you don't come back. The terms were harsh but fair. Leon nodded. What about us? There is no us. There's you trying to be Noah's father and me protecting my son. That's it. But as she said it, Leon caught her glance flicking to his lips for just a moment, and he knew she was lying to herself as much as to him. I should go, he said. Thank you for dinner, and for letting me meet him. Sinea walked him to the door, maintaining careful distance between them. Leon? He turned back hopefully. Don't make me regret this. As Leon walked back to his car, he could see Noah's bedroom window glowing softly upstairs. Somewhere behind that light was his son, probably dreaming of race cars and blanket forts, safe in a world his mother had built for him. Leon had built an empire in 4 years, but Sinea had built something infinitely more valuable, a home where their son could grow up feeling loved and secure. Now Leon had 1 week to prove he deserved to be part of that world. 1 week to show he could be the man Noah needed him to be. As he drove away, Leon's phone buzzed again. This time he didn't even look at it, because for the first time in 4 years he had something more important than business to think about. Leon stood outside Westfield Elementary at exactly 2:47 p.m., 3 minutes before Noah's preschool let out. He'd spent the morning canceling meetings, rearranging conference calls, and ignoring increasingly frantic emails from his German office. For the first time in 4 years, Leon Hargrave was putting something before business. The irony wasn't lost on him that he felt more nervous waiting for a 3-year-old than he'd ever felt before a board meeting. Other parents clustered near the school entrance, mostly mothers in yoga pants and SUVs, a few fathers checking phones while they waited. Leon felt conspicuous in his navy Tom Ford suit, but he'd come straight from his hotel after a morning of damage control calls. At exactly 2:50 p.m., the doors opened and children spilled out like colorful confetti. Leon searched the crowd until he spotted a familiar dark head bouncing toward him. Leon! Noah's face lit up with pure joy as he ran across the playground. You came. The simple delight in his son's voice made Leon's chest swell with an emotion he'd never experienced. Pride mixed with protective love so fierce, it was almost overwhelming. I promised I would, Leon said, crouching down to Noah's level. How was school? We made art today. Look. Noah thrust a construction paper creation toward Leon. It's a building like you make, but with a rainbow on top because Miss Katie says buildings should make people happy. Leon studied the artwork. A rectangle with windows drawn in crayon, topped with an arch of colorful stripes. It's perfect. Buildings should absolutely have rainbows. Can you put rainbows on your buildings? I'll see what I can do, Leon said seriously, tucking the artwork carefully into his jacket pocket. From across the playground, Leon spotted Sinea emerging from the school building with Noah's teacher. She wore dark jeans and a cream sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, and she looked every inch the devoted mother coordinating with her son's educator. Mama, Noah called, waving enthusiastically. Leon came to pick me up just like you said. Sinea approached cautiously, her green eyes scanning Leon's face for signs of reluctance or impatience. How is your day, baby? Good. I told Miss Katie about Leon and she wants to meet him. A young woman with kind eyes and paint-stained fingers extended her hand to Leon. You must be Noah's father. I'm Katie Morrison. Noah's told us so much about you. Leon shook her hand, wondering what stories his 3-year-old had invented. All good things, I hope. Oh yes. According to Noah, you build castles in the clouds and drive a magic black car. Leon glanced at Sinea, who was fighting a smile. Close enough. Well, Noah is one of our brightest students, Miss Katie continued, very creative, very empathetic. You should be proud. I am, Leon said, and meant it completely. After Miss Katie left, Sinea turned to Leon. So, supervised visit number 1. Noah wants to show you the park. 1 hour. Can we get ice cream after? Noah asked hopefully. After the park, if Leon has time, Sinea said carefully. Leon checked his watch. His assistant had scheduled a conference call with Tokyo investors at 4:30 p.m., a call that could determine whether his latest acquisition went through, a call worth approximately $50 million. Leon has all the time in the world, he said, pulling out his phone and turning it off completely. Sinea's eyebrows rose in surprise, but she didn't comment. The park was 6 blocks away, an easy walk through tree-lined streets that reminded Leon why he'd chosen this neighborhood originally. Noah chattered the entire way, pointing out important landmarks. The house with the dog that barked every morning, the mailbox that looked like a fish, the tree that was perfect for climbing when he got bigger. And this is my favorite bench, Noah announced as they entered the park. Mama and I sit here and watch clouds sometimes. Leon imagined Sinea and Noah sharing quiet moments here, making up stories about cloud shapes, and felt another pang of missed memories. The playground was busy with after-school activity. Noah immediately ran toward the swings, calling over his shoulder, "Push me really high." As Leon helped Noah onto a swing, he noticed Sinea settling on a nearby bench with a book, close enough to supervise but far enough to give them space. She was trying to read, but Leon caught her glancing up every few seconds. "Higher!" Noah squealed with delight. Leon pushed gently, then a little harder as Noah's confidence grew. "How's this?" "I'm flying. Look, Mama, I'm flying." Sinea looked up and smiled, not at Leon but at Noah's joy. It was the first genuine smile Leon had seen from her since his return. "Tell me about your friends at school," Leon said as he continued pushing. "There's Emma and Marcus and Lily. Emma has a pet hamster and Marcus knows all the dinosaur names. Lily shares her snacks with me sometimes." "That's very nice of her." "Yeah. Mama says sharing is how we show people we care about them." Leon filed away this piece of Sinea's parenting philosophy. "Your mama is very smart about those things. She's smart about everything. She fixes my toys when they break and makes pancakes that look like cars and reads really good voices when she does stories." "What's your favorite story?" "The one about the dragon who was scared of his own fire. Mama makes the dragon voice really funny." Leon made a mental note to ask Sinea about the book later. He wanted to learn Noah's preferences, his routines, his world. After swings, they moved to the climbing structure. Noah was fearless, scrambling up rope ladders and sliding down curved slides with the confidence of a child who'd never been told the world was dangerous. "Look at me," Noah called from the top of a play castle. "I'm the king of the castle. Your kingdom is very impressive, Your Majesty." Leon called back. Noah giggled and slid down the spiral slide, landing in a heap of giggles at Leon's feet. Again, they played for 45 minutes, moving from structure to structure as Noah's interest shifted. Leon found himself laughing more than he had in months, caught up in his son's infectious joy and boundless energy. But it was the quiet moments that affected him most. When Noah took his hand naturally while walking between play areas, or when he leaned against Leon's legs while catching his breath. Casual physical affection that spoke of trust being built. "Ice cream time?" Noah asked hopefully as other families began to leave. Leon looked toward Sinea, who was checking her watch. She nodded and gathered her things. The ice cream truck was parked at the edge of the park, playing its tinny melody. Noah studied the colorful pictures on the side with the seriousness of a diplomat choosing state policy. "I want the one with the face," he decided. "The one that looks happy." Leon ordered a character ice cream for Noah and simple vanilla for himself. Sinea declined, but Leon noticed her accepting small bites when Noah offered to share. They found a picnic table where Noah could eat without making too much of a mess. As his son attacked his ice cream with focused determination, Leon caught Sinea watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "What?" he asked quietly. "You're good with him," she admitted reluctantly. "I wasn't sure. I mean, you never showed much interest in children before." "I never understood before," Leon said honestly. "I thought children were something you eventually got around to, like remodeling the kitchen or planning for retirement. I didn't know it would be like this." "Like what?" Leon watched Noah trying to lick ice cream that was melting faster than he could eat it, like suddenly understanding what's actually important. Sinea's expression softened slightly. "He's been asking about you since yesterday. When you're coming back, if you liked his fort, whether you have toys at your house. What did you tell him?" "That we'll see. That adults have complicated feelings sometimes." She paused. He doesn't understand why anyone wouldn't want to be around him all the time. The words hit Leon like a punch. Sinia, I'm not trying to guilt you. I'm just explaining how his mind works. To him, love means presence. If you love someone, you stay. If you leave, it means you stopped loving them. Leon felt the weight of that simple truth. I never stopped loving either of you. But you left anyway. Before Leon could respond, Noah finished his ice cream and climbed into Leon's lap, sticky fingers and all. Can you come to dinner again tomorrow? Leon looked to Sineya, asking permission. We'll see, she said, but her tone was less definitive than before. Noah seemed satisfied with this non-answer and settled more comfortably against Leon's chest. Your heart is really loud, he observed. Is it? Uh-huh. Mama's is too, but yours is louder. Like a big drum. Leon became aware of his heartbeat, accelerated by the simple weight of his son in his arms. Maybe that's because it's excited to meet you. Hearts can be excited. Hearts can feel lots of things. Noah considered this seriously. What does your heart feel right now? Leon met Sineya's eyes over Noah's head. Happy. My heart feels very happy right now. Noah smiled and snuggled closer. Mine too. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching other families enjoy the late afternoon sunshine. Leon felt something he'd never experienced before, a sense of completeness he hadn't known he was missing. Then his phone vibrated in his pocket. He ignored it. It vibrated again, and again. You can check it, Sineya said quietly. It's not important. Leon. Her voice was gentle but firm. Don't lie to him about who you are. If business is important to you, that's okay. But don't pretend it isn't. Leon pulled out his phone, keeping Noah settled in his lap. 17 missed calls from his assistant, 12 from his business partner, 6 text messages marked urgent. The last text made his blood run cold. German investors pulling out. Need you on call now or we lose everything. Leon's empire, the success he'd built in 4 years of exile, was crumbling again. And this time, he couldn't run away to rebuild it. I have to make a call, he said quietly. Sineya's expression shuddered. Of course you do. 5 minutes, that's all. It's never 5 minutes, Leon. But Noah was looking up at him with trusting eyes, and Leon made a decision that 4 years ago would have been impossible. You know what? Leon turned the phone off completely and put it away. It can wait. Sineya stared at him in shock. Leon, if it's urgent, nothing is more urgent than this. Leon tightened his arms around Noah. I told you I'd changed. This is me proving it. For the first time since his return, Sineya looked at him like she was seeing someone she recognized. The man she'd fallen in love with, the one who'd once promised her the world. But Leon knew the call would come again. His business was in crisis, and he couldn't ignore it forever. The question was, when the choice came between saving his empire and keeping his promise to his son, which would he choose? As Noah chattered about the ducks on the nearby pond, Leon realized he already knew the answer, and it terrified him as much as it exhilarated him. Leon's hotel suite at the Ritz-Carlton was a war zone of scattered papers, 3 laptops running simultaneously, and empty coffee cups marking the battleground of a man trying to save his empire from 3,000 miles away. It was 11:43 p.m., and he'd been on back-to-back calls for 6 hours straight, trying to salvage what was left of his German operations. The Frankfurt investors are demanding face-to-face meetings. His assistant Rebecca's voice crackled through the speakerphone from Berlin. They won't sign without you physically present. We're talking about a $2 billion development project, Leon. If we lose this, I understand the implications, Leon said, rubbing his temples where a headache had been building for hours. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sparkled below him, but all he could think about was the promise he'd made to Noah earlier, that he'd come to preschool pickup again tomorrow. They've scheduled the emergency meeting for Thursday morning. I've already arranged for the jet. Cancel it. Silence on the other end of the line. Sir? Cancel the jet, Rebecca. I'm not going to Germany. Leon, with all due respect, are you experiencing some kind of breakdown? Because this deal represents 40% of our annual revenue. If we lose it, we might have to close the Berlin office entirely. 300 jobs are at stake. Leon closed his eyes. 300 employees who'd worked for him faithfully, who'd helped him rebuild from nothing. People with families, mortgages, children of their own who needed stability. But all he could see was Noah's face lighting up when he'd spotted Leon at the school gate. Find another way, Leon said finally. Set up video conferences. Bring them here if you have to. But I'm not leaving the country. This is insane. You built this company by being willing to go anywhere, do anything, sacrifice everything for success. What's changed? Everything, Leon thought. Everything had changed. Just find another way, Rebecca. That's what I pay you for. He ended the call and stared at the chaos of his temporary office. His phone immediately buzzed with another call. His business partner Klaus from Berlin. Leon, mein Freund. What is this I hear about you refusing to come to Germany? The investors, they are very angry. They say if you cannot make time for them, they cannot make time for us. Klaus explained to them. There is nothing to explain. You come to Berlin, you save the company. You stay in America playing. What is it you are playing? The vacation? I'm not on vacation. Then what? You have a woman there? Some American beauty who makes you forget your responsibilities? Leon's grip tightened on the phone. This isn't about a woman. Everything is about a woman when a man acts like a fool. Listen, Leon, I understand. Beautiful women, they make us crazy. But this is business. Come to Berlin for 3 days, sign the contracts, then go back to your American romance. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. Unless... Leon, tell me you are not having the nervous breakdown. Tell me the stress has not finally broken you. Before Leon could answer, someone knocked on his hotel room door. Leon frowned. He'd left strict instructions not to be disturbed. Hold on, Klaus. Leon muted the call and opened the door to find Sinea standing in the hallway, holding a manila envelope. She looked beautiful but tired, wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. But her expression was all business. We need to talk, she said simply. Leon stepped aside to let her in, acutely aware of the disaster his suite had become. How did you find your hotel? You left the business card on my kitchen counter when you put Noah's artwork in your pocket yesterday. She glanced around at the chaos. So this is what changed priorities looks like. Leon quickly closed his laptops and gathered some of the papers. It's not what it looks like. Really? Because it looks like a man trying to run a multinational corporation from a hotel room while pretending to have time for a child. Leon's phone was still buzzing with Klaus's call. Sinea nodded toward it. Answer it. I'll wait. It can wait. Leon, I've been married to you. I know the sound of a business crisis. Answer the phone. Leon reluctantly unmuted the call. Klaus, I'll have to call you back. Leon, do not hang up on me. We need to discuss. Leon ended the call and turned off the phone entirely, meeting Sinea's skeptical gaze. That was dramatic, she said dryly. What's in the envelope? Sinea handed it to him. Noah drew this for you at preschool today. Miss Katie said he spent all of art time on it. Leon opened the envelope and felt his heart constrict. It was another building drawing, but more elaborate this time. A skyscraper with windows, a door, and stick figures in front. A tall figure labeled Leon, a smaller figure labeled Mama, and a tiny figure labeled Me in the middle, holding both their hands. At the top, in careful preschool letters, Noah had written, My family. Sinea. Leon's voice was rough. He's been talking about you nonstop. Leon this, Leon that. He asked me 17 times today when you were coming back. He wants to show you his new Lego tower, and he picked out a book he wants you to read to him. Leon studied the drawing, seeing his son's hope rendered in crayon and construction paper. But here's the thing, Sinea continued, her voice gaining strength. I can see what's happening here. You're trying to manage a crisis while playing part-time father, and when the pressure gets too high, when the choice becomes real instead of theoretical, you'll choose business. Because that's who you are. It is who you are, Leon. And it's okay. I've accepted it. But Noah hasn't, and he can't. So I need to know right now. Are you in this completely? Or are you just visiting until your real life calls you back? Leon set the drawing carefully on the coffee table. What are you asking me? I'm asking what happens when your investors demand you fly to Germany tomorrow. I'm asking what happens when you have to choose between a board meeting and Noah's preschool graduation. I'm asking whether you're ready to be a father or whether you're just playing house while you figure out your next move. The directness of her questions cut deep, because they were the same ones keeping him awake at night. I told you I've changed. Prove it. Sinea pulled a folded paper from her pocket. This is Noah's schedule for next week. Monday is his first swimming lesson. He's been terrified of water, but finally agreed to try. Wednesday is parent-teacher conferences where we discuss his development. Friday is the preschool Halloween party, where parents are expected to attend in costume and help with activities. She set the paper on the table next to Noah's drawing. If you can commit to being at all 3 events completely present and engaged, then we'll talk about expanding your role in his life. If not, then this ends now before he gets more attached. Leon looked at the schedule, his mind already calculating conflicts. Monday was when the Berlin investors wanted their video conference. Wednesday was when Klaus planned to fly in for damage control meetings. Friday, his phone buzzed, then buzzed again. Answer it, Sinea said quietly. Let's see what wins. Leon stared at the phone, then at Noah's drawing, then at Sanea's expectant face. No, Leon. I said no. Those calls can wait. This conversation is more important. Sanea's eyebrows rose in surprise. Leon picked up Noah's drawing again, studying the careful way his son had drawn them as a family unit. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'll be there. Even if it means losing business? Even if it means losing everything? Sanea studied his face, looking for signs of doubt or reservation. You don't understand what you're promising. Swimming lessons aren't just about showing up. You'll need to get in the pool, help him when he's scared, celebrate when he kicks his legs for 3 seconds. Parent-teacher conferences mean discussing Noah's emotional development, his friendships, his challenges. The Halloween party means wearing a ridiculous costume and helping 4-year-olds decorate cookies without eating them all. Leon smiled despite the chaos surrounding them. What costume does he want me to wear? You're serious? Dead serious. Sanea sat down on the couch, suddenly looking exhausted. I don't understand you. 4 years ago, you couldn't make time for a romantic dinner because some contractor in Dubai needed your approval. Now you're telling me you'll dress up as Batman for a preschool party? Superman, actually. Noah mentioned it yesterday. Said Batman is cool, but Superman can fly. Leon. Sanea's voice was soft, vulnerable in a way he hadn't heard since his return. I want to believe you. God, I want to believe you've changed, but I'm terrified. Of what? Of letting myself hope again. Of watching Noah fall in love with having a father only to lose you again. She paused, then continued in a whisper. Of falling in love with you again, when I know how badly it hurt the first time. The admission hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. Leon's phone rang again. This time, it was Rebecca calling back. Without breaking eye contact with Sanea, Leon picked up the phone and turned it completely off. I choose you, he said simply. Both of you. Whatever that means. Whatever it costs. Sanea's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Pretty words again. Then let me prove them with actions. Leon moved closer, close enough to see the gold flecks in her green eyes. Let me prove I'm not the same man who left. How? Leon gestured toward his laptop. By walking away from a $2 billion deal to read bedtime stories to my son. As if summoned by their conversation, Leon's hotel phone rang, the landline that only Rebecca had the number for, reserved for true emergencies. They both stared at it. That's them telling me they found a way to reach me, Leon said. Probably to inform me that if I don't get on a plane tonight, I lose everything I've built. The phone kept ringing. Sanea stood up. Answer it. Find out how bad it really is. Sanea. Answer it, Leon. Because if you can walk away from everything when it's real, when the stakes are highest, then maybe you really have changed. Leon picked up the phone on the 6th ring. Mr. Hargrave? Rebecca's voice was tense. The investors just called. They're pulling out entirely unless you're in Berlin by tomorrow evening. The deal is dead, and they're demanding immediate repayment of advance funds. We're looking at potential bankruptcy proceedings if we can't. Leon looked at Sanea, who was watching his face intently. Rebecca, Leon said calmly. Send them my regrets. Tell them I'm unavailable. Sir, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. Some things are more important than money. He hung up the phone and turned to face Sanea fully. There, he said. I just chose you and Noah over a fortune. The question is, do you believe me now? The silence stretched between them, heavy with 4 years of hurt, and the fragile possibility of redemption. The Westfield Community Center pool smelled like chlorine and childhood memories. Leon stood at the edge of the shallow end wearing swim shorts he'd hastily bought that morning, watching Noah cling to Sanea's hand like his life depended on it. I don't wanna, Noah whispered, his usual confidence replaced by wide-eyed terror as he stared at the clear blue water that barely reached Leon's waist. It's okay, baby, Sanea murmured, crouching down to Noah's eye level. Remember what we talked about? The water is your friend, it just wants to play. Leon's phone had been buzzing in his bag for the past hour. 12 missed calls from Rebecca, 8 from Klaus, and a string of increasingly frantic emails about emergency board meetings and investor lawsuits. But he'd made a promise, and for the first time in his adult life he was keeping it. Maybe Daddy can show you how fun it is, Sanea suggested gently. The word Daddy hit Leon like a physical blow. It was the first time Sanea had used it, even hypothetically, and he saw the slight surprise in her own eyes at the slip. Would you like that? Leon asked Noah softly. Want to see me go in the water first? Noah nodded solemnly, still pressed against his mother's legs. Leon waded into the pool, the cool water lapping at his chest. Around them, other families were having their own swimming lessons. Toddlers with water wings, patient instructors, the occasional happy shriek when a child conquered a fear. "See? It's just like a really big bathtub," Leon called out, trying to project calm confidence he didn't entirely feel. He'd learned to swim at boarding school, where showing fear earned you mockery from classmates. This was different. This was about making his son feel safe. "But what if I sink?" Noah asked, his voice small. "You won't sink because Mama and I will be right here with you," Leon said. "And you know what? Even if you did start to sink, we'd catch you before you could blink." Instructor Maria, a cheerful woman in her 20s with boundless patience, approached with a small foam kickboard. "Noah, this is going to be your special floating friend today. Want to meet him?" Noah eyed the kickboard suspiciously but allowed Maria to show him how it worked, how it could hold him up while he learned to kick his legs. "Here's what we're going to do," Maria continued. "Mama is going to hold one of your hands. Daddy is going to hold the other, and your floating friend is going to keep you safe. We're just going to put our toes in the water. That's all." Leon positioned himself on one side, Sinea on the other, their hands supporting Noah as he slowly, reluctantly, dipped one toe into the pool. "It's cold," Noah yelped, but he didn't pull away. "Just like your bath when Mama forgets to add enough hot water," Leon said, earning a small smile from his son and a mock glare from Sinea. They spent 20 minutes just getting Noah comfortable with having his feet in the water. Leon found himself completely absorbed in the process, celebrating each small victory, providing gentle encouragement when Noah got scared, working in perfect sync with Sinea to create a safety net of love around their son. "I think I'm ready to put my whole foot in," Noah announced finally, as if he were preparing to scale Mount Everest. "That's very brave," Leon said seriously. "Are you sure you're ready for such an advanced move?" Noah giggled at the exaggerated respect in Leon's voice. "I'm ready." What followed was the longest swimming lesson in history, measured not in distance covered but in trust built. Noah progressed from feet to ankles to knees, each level requiring patient coaxing and celebration. Leon's phone buzzed again in his bag. Through the glass windows of the pool area, he could see other parents checking emails, taking calls, dividing their attention between their children and their devices. But Leon only had eyes for Noah, who was now floating on his stomach with the kickboard, his legs moving in approximation of a kick while Leon's hands provided invisible support beneath him. "Look at me, I'm swimming," Noah called out, his voice filled with wonder. "You absolutely are," Leon said, his throat tight with emotion. "You're doing amazingly." From the other side of the kickboard, Sinea caught Leon's eye. Her expression was soft, unguarded in a way it hadn't been since his return. She was seeing him not as the man who'd left but as the father Noah deserved. After the lesson, they sat on the pool deck while Noah excitedly recounted every moment to anyone who would listen. The changing room attendant, another family packing up their things, a janitor who smiled politely at the enthusiastic recap. "I went underwater. Well, my face didn't go underwater, but my arms did. And Leon held me so I didn't sink." Noah bounced on his towel, still high on his accomplishment. "You were very brave," Sinea said, wrapping him in a dry towel. "I'm proud of you for trying something scary." Leon made it not scary. He promised he wouldn't let me sink, and he didn't. The simple faith in Noah's voice made Leon's chest ache. When had anyone trusted him so completely? As they gathered their things, Leon's phone rang again. This time it was a number he didn't recognize. Probably a reporter who'd gotten wind of the business crisis. "You can answer it," Sinea said quietly while Noah struggled with his shoes. "I don't want to." "Leon, ignoring it won't make it go away." Leon looked at Noah, still chattering about his swimming triumph, and made another choice that would have been impossible 4 years ago. "Yes, it will. For today, it absolutely will." They walked to the parking lot together, Noah between them, still wrapped in his towel like a small superhero cape. For a moment, Leon allowed himself to imagine this was their life. Family swimming lessons on Monday afternoons, shared pride in small victories, the comfortable rhythm of parents united in love for their child. "Ice cream?" Noah asked hopefully as they reached Sinea's car. "You already had a treat after swimming lessons," Sinea reminded him. "But I was so brave. Extra brave deserves extra treats." Leon couldn't help laughing. "I think he's got a point. Extra brave definitely deserves recognition." Sinea looked between them, clearly torn between good parenting and celebrating Noah's breakthrough. "One small ice cream," she conceded. "But you eat all your vegetables at dinner." "Deal." Noah threw his arms around Leon's legs in an impulsive hug. "Thank you for making the water not scary." As Leon hugged his son back, breathing in the chlorine and innocent trust, his phone buzzed with a text message. Despite himself, he glanced at it. "Rebecca. Emergency board meeting scheduled for tonight. Klaus flying in. If you're not there, they're voting you out as CEO. This is serious, Leon. The words blurred together as Noah pulled back and looked up at him with shining eyes. Will you come to ice cream with us? Leon looked at the text, then at his son, then at Sinea, who was watching his face carefully. Wouldn't miss it, he said, putting the phone away without responding. At the ice cream shop, Noah chose a cone with sprinkles while Leon and Sinea sat across from each other at a small table, the weight of unspoken conversation heavy between them. You're losing everything, aren't you? Sinea asked quietly while Noah was distracted by his treat. Leon met her eyes. Probably. Leon, I'm not the same man who left Sinea. That man would have been on a plane to Berlin yesterday. That man would have taken every call, missed every swimming lesson, chosen money over moments. Leon watched Noah carefully lick ice cream off his cone. But this man just watched his son overcome his fear of water. This man got to be the safe harbor his child needed. And that's worth more than all the buildings in the world. Sinea's eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. What will you do? I don't know. Start over, I guess. I did it once before. But you're older now. And the business world doesn't forgive failure easily. Leon shrugged. Then I'll find something else. Something that doesn't require me to choose between success and being present for the people I love. Mama, Leon, look. Noah had managed to eat his ice cream without making a complete mess. A victory worth celebrating at his age. Very impressive, buddy, Leon said. You're getting good at lots of new things today. Can we go swimming again next week? Leon looked to Sinea for permission. She nodded slowly. Absolutely. Same time next Monday? Yes. And maybe next time I can put my face in the water. As they prepared to leave, Sinea touched Leon's arm. The parent-teacher conference is Wednesday at 4 p.m. Are you still planning to come? Leon's phone buzzed again. Another call. Another crisis. Another choice between his old life and his new one. I'll be there, he said without checking the phone. Even if it means everything, Sinea. Some things are worth losing everything for. As they walked to their cars, Noah skipped between them, still high on his swimming success. Leon felt his phone buzzing constantly in his pocket, but for the first time in his adult life, he felt no compulsion to answer. Leon? Sinea called as he reached his car. Yeah? Thank you. For today. For being exactly who he needed you to be. Leon nodded, not trusting his voice. As he drove back to his hotel, Noah's joyful voice echoed in his mind. Leon made it not scary. Maybe that's what being a father really meant. Making the scary things less frightening. Being the safe harbor in uncertain waters. Proving through presence that some things were worth more than empires. His phone was still buzzing as he pulled into the hotel parking garage. Leon turned it off without looking and headed upstairs to face whatever wreckage awaited him. But for the first time since returning to his old life, Leon felt like he was exactly where he belonged. The Ritz-Carlton suite looked like a battlefield the morning after defeat. Leon sat surrounded by legal documents, termination notices, and laptop screens displaying the systematic dismantling of everything he'd built over 4 years. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he couldn't bring himself to care. Klaus stood by the window, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled from an overnight flight and a morning of emergency damage control. 15 years of friendship, Leon. 15 years of building this empire together. And you destroyed it all for what? A woman who divorced you? She didn't divorce me, Leon said quietly, signing another document that transferred millions of dollars in assets to angry investors. I left her. Same result. You are bankrupt, mein Freund. Completely ruined. The Berlin office closes today. The London properties are being seized. Your personal assets are frozen pending litigation. Klaus threw a manila folder on the coffee table. 300 people lost their jobs because you decided to play house instead of flying to Germany. Leon finished signing the papers and set down his pen. Outside the window, life in the city continued normally. People going to work, children walking to school, the world spinning on as if his empire hadn't just collapsed in spectacular fashion. I'm sorry about the employees, Klaus, truly. Help them find new positions. Use my personal contacts, my recommendations. I'll do whatever I can to. With what influence? With what credibility? You are finished in this business, Leon. No one will trust you again. No one will invest in a man who chooses romance over responsibility. The accusation stung because it wasn't entirely wrong. Leon had chosen his family over his business. He'd chosen presence over profit. And now he was paying the price. What will you do now? Klaus asked, his anger giving way to genuine concern for his longtime friend. Leon checked his watch. 2:30 p.m. Noah's parent-teacher conference was in an hour and a half. Right now? I'm going to learn about my son's development from his teacher. Klaus stared at him in disbelief. You have lost everything, and you are going to a school meeting? Yes. Leon, I think perhaps the stress has broken your mind completely. Maybe it had. Maybe losing a fortune and gaining a family was exactly the kind of madness Leon needed. After Klaus left, taking with him the last vestiges of Leon's old life, Leon showered, put on one of his remaining suits, and drove to Westfield Elementary. The irony wasn't lost on him that he could still afford to dress like a billionaire for exactly 3 more days before his credit cards were frozen. He found Sinia waiting in the hallway outside Miss Katie's classroom, looking nervous in the way parents do when they're about to hear official assessments of their child's development. You came, she said, surprise evident in her voice. I said I would. I know, but... She gestured vaguely. Your assistant called the school looking for you. She sounded frantic. Rebecca always sounds frantic. It's her natural state. Sinia studied his face. Leon, what's happening with your business? Before he could answer, Miss Katie opened the classroom door. Mr. and Mrs. I'm sorry, I should ask how you'd prefer to be addressed. Sinia is fine, Sinia said quickly. And this is Leon, Noah's father. The simple introduction, Noah's father, sent a warmth through Leon's chest that no business victory had ever matched. Miss Katie's classroom was a wonderland of children's artwork, reading corners, and learning centers that spoke to a teacher who genuinely loved her work. Leon found himself studying Noah's contributions to the wall displays, his name written in careful letters, a family portrait that featured 3 stick figures under a rainbow. Noah is one of our most interesting students, Miss Katie began as they settled into child-sized chairs around a small table. He's incredibly bright, very empathetic, and shows natural leadership qualities. Leon felt a swell of pride that surprised him with its intensity. However, Miss Katie continued, I've noticed some concerning patterns in his emotional responses, particularly around attachment and abandonment. Sinia's face went pale. What do you mean? Noah has developed what I call hypervigilant affection. He becomes extremely attached to adult figures very quickly, but he also shows signs of anticipating their departure. He'll cling to substitute teachers, become anxious when I step out of the classroom, and he started asking repeatedly if people are going away. Leon felt like he'd been punched in the chest. Is this because of me? Miss Katie's expression was gentle but direct. Children process parental absence in complex ways. Noah has created a narrative where people he loves leave without warning. This affects how he forms relationships. But I've been here all week, Leon said weakly. Yes, and Noah talks about you constantly. Leon said this. Leon did that. Leon promised to come back. But he also asks me every day if I think you'll still be here tomorrow. Sinia's hands were clenched in her lap. What can we do? Consistency is crucial. If you're going to be in Noah's life, Miss Katie looked directly at Leon. It needs to be permanent and predictable. Children his age can't distinguish between temporary absence and abandonment. To them, gone is gone. I'm not going anywhere, Leon said firmly. Noah doesn't know that. In his experience, fathers go away and don't come back. You'll need to prove through consistent presence that you're different. Miss Katie pulled out a folder of Noah's artwork and schoolwork. Let me show you something. The first drawing was from 3 weeks ago before Leon's return. It showed a house with 2 figures labeled me and Mama. The second drawing was from yesterday. The same house, but now with a 3rd figure standing slightly apart from the others labeled Leon with a question mark. See how he's drawn you separated from the family unit? And the question mark? Noah wants to include you, but he's protecting himself emotionally by not fully integrating you into his sense of family. Leon stared at the drawing, seeing his son's emotional caution rendered in crayon and uncertainty. There's more, Miss Katie continued. Noah has started hoarding snacks from lunch, hiding them in his backpack. When I asked him why, he said he was saving them in case Mama gets sad again and forgets to make dinner. Sinia gasped, tears springing to her eyes. I always fed him. Even when I was falling apart, I'm sure you did, Miss Katie said kindly. But Noah remembers the emotional climate of that time. Young children often express anxiety about one thing through concerns about another. He's not really worried about food. He's worried about stability. Leon felt the weight of his abandonment settling on him like a physical burden. He hadn't just left Sinia. He'd left a son who didn't even exist yet. But that son had grown up in the shadow of his father's absence, learning to expect disappointment before he'd even learned to walk. How do we fix this? Leon asked. Time, consistency, and what I call boring reliability. Noah doesn't need grand gestures or expensive gifts. He needs you to show up when you say you will, do what you promise to do, and be emotionally present even during mundane moments. Miss Katie showed them more examples of Noah's work. Stories he'd dictated about families where fathers came back from faraway places, drawings of airplanes with people waving goodbye, and a heartbreaking journal entry where he'd listed things he wanted to tell his daddy when he comes home. The good news, Miss Katie continued, is that Noah has a remarkably resilient spirit and a strong foundation of love from his mother. Children can heal from early attachment disruptions if the disrupting pattern changes permanently. Permanently, Leon repeated. I can't stress this enough. Noah cannot experience another abandonment. His psychological development depends on you being exactly who you say you are, consistently for years to come. As they walked to the parking lot after the conference, Sinia was quiet, her arms wrapped around herself in the protective gesture Leon remembered from their worst fights. I didn't know, she said finally. I tried so hard to shield him from my pain, but he felt it anyway. It's not your fault, isn't it? I should have been stronger. I should have hidden it better. Leon stopped walking and turned to face her. Sinia, look at me. You raised an incredible child alone, while dealing with heartbreak and pregnancy and financial stress. You kept him fed and loved and safe. You are not responsible for the damage I caused. But Miss Katie said Noah needs consistency going forward. That's on me to provide. You've done everything right. Sinia's composure cracked. He's been hoarding food, Leon. My baby has been worried about whether I'd remember to feed him, and I never knew. Leon pulled her into his arms without thinking, and after a moment of resistance, she collapsed against him, her body shaking with suppressed sobs. We'll fix this, he whispered into her hair. I'll fix this. How? You can't undo 4 years of damage with good intentions. No, but I can spend the next 40 years proving that some people stay. They stood in the school parking lot, holding each other for the first time since his return, united in their love for their son and their determination to heal the wounds Leon's absence had caused. When Sinia finally pulled back, her eyes were red but determined. The Halloween party is Friday. It's the biggest event of the year for the preschool. If you're really committed to this to him, you'll be there in costume helping with activities, showing every parent and child in that room that Noah has a father who shows up. Leon nodded. I'll be there. Even if it means everything, Sinia. I told you, some things are worth losing everything for. As he drove back to his hotel, Leon's phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Lawyers need you to sign final bankruptcy papers tomorrow morning. I'm sorry, Leon. I'm so sorry. Leon read the message and felt nothing. No panic, no regret, no desperate urge to find a way to salvage something from the wreckage. Instead, he thought about Noah's drawings, about the question mark next to his name, about his little boy hoarding goldfish crackers because his father's absence had taught him that security was fragile. Tomorrow he would sign papers making his financial ruin official. But Friday, he would put on a Superman costume and help preschoolers decorate cookies. And for the first time in his life, Leon knew exactly which of those events actually mattered. Leon stood in the costume shop mirror, adjusting the red cape that completed his Superman outfit, and wondered if this was what midlife crisis looked like. A bankrupt billionaire buying a superhero costume with one of his last functioning credit cards to attend a preschool Halloween party. The irony wasn't lost on him. Superman saved the world. Leon had just watched his own world burn while choosing to read bedtime stories instead of attending board meetings. His phone buzzed with yet another call from Rebecca. The bankruptcy papers sat on his hotel desk, waiting to be signed. But first he had a promise to keep to a little boy who thought fathers were people who disappeared. The Westfield Elementary Gymnasium had been transformed into a Halloween wonderland. Orange and black streamers hung from the ceiling, carved pumpkins lined the walls, and activity stations were set up around the room. Cookie decorating, face painting, a costume parade, and games that would challenge both children and their parents to work together. Leon spotted Noah immediately. His son was dressed as a firefighter, complete with a tiny helmet and coat, standing close to Sinia, who wore a simple witch costume with a pointed hat that somehow made her look more beautiful instead of scary. Leon! Noah's face lit up like a Christmas tree when he spotted the red cape and blue suit. He ran across the gym, his firefighter boots making loud clomping sounds on the polished floor. Leon crouched down as Noah barreled into him, wrapping his small arms around Leon's neck with an enthusiasm that made Leon's chest tight with emotion. You're really Superman, Noah breathed in wonder. I told everyone my daddy was coming as Superman, and here you are. My daddy. The words hit Leon like a physical blow, the best kind of blow, the kind that rebuilt instead of destroyed. Well, someone told me there was going to be a very brave firefighter here who might need Superman's help saving the day, Leon said seriously. Noah giggled and stepped back to strike a heroic pose. Firefighters and Superman are both heroes. We can be a team. The best team, Leon agreed, and meant it completely. Sinia approached more cautiously, her eyes taking in Leon's complete commitment to the costume. You actually did it. I said I would. I know, but... She gestured around the room filled with families, children, and the cheerful chaos of a school event. This isn't exactly your usual environment. Leon looked around at the organized pandemonium, parents helping children with craft projects, toddlers having sugar-fueled meltdowns, the constant background noise of dozens of conversations happening simultaneously. 4 years ago, this would have been his worst nightmare. Today, it felt like coming home. Noah, why don't you show Leon the cookie decorating station? Sineya suggested. I need to help Miss Katie set up the parade. As Noah led Leon toward a table covered in sugar cookies, frosting, and enough sprinkles to supply a small bakery, Leon noticed other parents watching them with curiosity. Word had clearly gotten around that Noah's mysterious father had finally appeared. This is my daddy, Noah announced proudly to Mrs. Henderson, whose daughter Emma was in his class. He builds really tall buildings and he helped me not be scared of swimming. Mrs. Henderson smiled politely. How nice. I don't think we've met before. Leon's been working far away, Noah explained with the matter-of-fact acceptance of a child. But now he's back and he's going to help me decorate cookies. For the next hour, Leon threw himself into preschool party activities with the same focus he'd once applied to multinational business deals. He helped Noah create a cookie masterpiece involving enough frosting to construct a small building, participated in a 3-legged race that resulted in both of them tumbling into a pile of hay bales, and judged a contest where children had to guess how many candy corns were in a jar. You're really good at this, observed Jennifer Walsh, another parent who'd been watching Leon navigate the social dynamics of competitive preschooler parents with surprising grace. Good at what? The dad thing. It's not as easy as it looks. Leon glanced around the room, noting the various parenting styles on display. The hyper-competitive father coaching his son through musical chairs like it was the Olympics. The mother frantically taking photos of every moment. The dad checking his phone while his daughter tugged on his sleeve for attention. I'm learning, Leon said honestly. Well, whatever you're doing, it's working. Noah hasn't stopped smiling since you got here. The observation made Leon's heart swell with a pride different from any business achievement. This was the pride of being exactly who someone needed you to be. During the costume parade, Leon stood with the other parents as children marched around the gym showing off their outfits. When Noah walked by in his firefighter gear, he spotted Leon in the crowd and broke formation to run over. Did you see me? Did you see my costume? I saw everything. You're the bravest firefighter in the whole parade. Noah beamed and ran back to rejoin his classmates. But Leon caught him glancing back repeatedly to make sure Leon was still there, still watching, still present. After the parade, Miss Katie announced the final activity, a family relay race that required parents and children to work together to complete silly challenges. Noah and Leon, your team Superman firefighter, Miss Katie announced. As they lined up for their turn, Noah slipped his small hand into Leon's larger one. We're going to win because we're both heroes, he whispered confidentially. The race involved carrying an egg on a spoon, Leon's job, while Noah crawled through a tunnel. Then both of them had to work together to build a tower out of foam blocks. They didn't win. Their tower toppled spectacularly just before the finish line, but Noah's delighted laughter as blocks scattered everywhere made it feel like the greatest victory of Leon's life. We almost had it, Noah said, not disappointed but exhilarated. Can we try again? The race is over, buddy. I know, but we could practice at home. We could get really good at building towers together. At home. As if they were already a family unit. As if it was natural that Leon would be there for tower building practice. As the party wound down and parents began collecting tired children and leftover treats, Leon helped clean up, stacking chairs and sweeping up sprinkles with the same attention to detail he'd once applied to contract negotiations. You don't have to do that, Sineya said, approaching with a sleepy Noah in her arms. I want to. She watched him work for a moment. You fit in here better than I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Maybe that you'd feel above all this. That you'd check your phone constantly or make excuses to leave early. Leon straightened from picking up scattered crayons. My phone has been off all afternoon. I noticed. Noah, drowsy from sugar crash and excitement, reached out toward Leon. Carry me too? Leon's heart melted as Noah transferred from Sineya's arms to his, small hands automatically curling around Leon's neck. The weight of his son, the trust in that simple gesture, felt more valuable than any empire he'd ever built. Did you have fun today, buddy? The best fun, Noah mumbled against Leon's shoulder. All my friends met my daddy and you helped me win the cookie contest and we almost won the race and I think someone needs a nap, Sanea said softly, but her eyes were on Leon's face as he held their son. As they walked to the parking lot, Noah half asleep in Leon's arms, Sanea was unusually quiet. What's wrong? Leon asked. Nothing's wrong, it's just... She paused at her car. You were perfect in there. Patient, engaged, completely present. It's everything I dreamed of when I was pregnant. Imagining what you'd be like as a father. The admission hung between them like a bridge. But, Leon sensed there was more. Sanea's voice became very quiet. But I'm terrified that this is temporary. That you're playing a role because it's new and exciting. But when reality sets in, when Noah gets sick at 3 a.m. or has tantrums in grocery stores or when being a parent becomes ordinary instead of magical, you'll remember why you left in the first place. Leon shifted Noah's weight, feeling his son's steady breathing against his chest. Sanea, I've lost everything. My company, my fortune, my reputation. I signed bankruptcy papers this morning. I'm probably going to have to sell my watch to afford dinner next week. Sanea's eyes widened in shock. Leon, but you know what? This afternoon, watching Noah show off his costume and helping him decorate cookies and seeing him include me in his idea of family, this was the best day I've had in 4 years. Maybe the best day I've ever had. A tear slipped down Sanea's cheek. You really lost everything? Everything that I thought mattered. But I found everything that actually does matter. Before Sanea could respond, a black sedan pulled into the parking lot. Leon recognized the car immediately. Klaus, probably with more bad news about legal complications from the bankruptcy. But it wasn't Klaus who got out of the car. It was a woman Leon had never seen before. Elegant and composed, wearing an expensive coat and an expression of barely controlled fury. She approached them directly, her eyes fixed on Leon with laser intensity. Leon Hargrave, she said in a crisp European accent. We need to talk. Now. Noah stirred in Leon's arms, sensing the tension. I'm sorry, do we know each other? Leon asked. The woman's smile was sharp as a blade. I'm Victoria Brennan, Marcus Brennan's widow, and thanks to your little midlife crisis, my late husband's pension fund, along with the retirement savings of 2,000 families, is gone. Completely wiped out because you decided to play house instead of protecting your investors. Leon felt the blood drain from his face. Marcus Brennan had been one of his earliest investors, a man who'd trusted Leon with his employees' pension fund, a man who'd died of a heart attack 6 months ago, leaving behind a wife and twin daughters. Victoria, I can explain. You can explain why you chose your personal drama over your fiduciary responsibility. You can explain why my daughter's college funds vanished because you decided being a weekend father was more important than honoring your commitments. Sanea stepped closer to Leon, instinctively protective despite not fully understanding the situation. There must be some mistake, Sanea began. The only mistake was trusting a man who puts his own desires above everyone else's welfare. Victoria's gaze shifted to Noah, still sleeping in Leon's arms. Cute family. I hope it's worth the price everyone else paid for it. As Victoria got back in her car and drove away, Leon stood frozen in the parking lot, holding his son and feeling the weight of unintended consequences crashing down around him. He'd thought his choice was simple, family over fortune. But he'd forgotten that his fortune was never just his own. Other people had trusted him with their futures, their security, their children's educations, and in saving his own family, he might have destroyed dozens of others. Leon sat in his hotel room at 3 a.m., surrounded by financial documents and a laptop that displayed the devastating scope of his company's collapse. Noah was curled up on the couch beside him, having refused to go home after the Halloween party, insisting he wanted to stay with Superman Daddy for the night. Sanea had reluctantly agreed, sensing that Leon needed the comfort of his son's presence as much as Noah needed to ensure his father wouldn't disappear again. The numbers on the screen were devastating. The Brennan Family Pension Trust had lost $12.3 million when Leon's company defaulted on guaranteed investment contracts. 2,000 families, teachers, firefighters, nurses, people who'd worked their entire careers trusting that their retirement was secure. Leon rubbed his eyes, which burned from hours of research. He'd found Victoria Brennan's information online. Marcus Brennan, 54, had died of a massive heart attack while reviewing the very portfolio that Leon's bankruptcy had just destroyed. He left behind Victoria and twin daughters, Sophie and Emma, both juniors in college whose tuition was now in jeopardy. Can't sleep either. Leon looked up to find Sanea standing in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. She'd changed out of her witch costume into jeans and one of his old college sweatshirts that she'd apparently kept all these years. "How long have you been awake?" Leon asked quietly, careful not to wake Noah. "Since you started typing at midnight." Sinia handed him a coffee and settled into the chair across from him. "Want to tell me what that woman meant about the pension fund?" Leon closed the laptop and leaned back, feeling the weight of exhaustion and guilt pressing down on him like a physical force. "When I started rebuilding the company in Germany, I needed capital fast. I accepted money from pension funds, promised guaranteed returns backed by my personal assets. And when you chose to stay here instead of flying to Germany, the deals fell through. The assets got seized. The pension funds lost everything." Leon's voice was hoarse with shame. "I knew there would be consequences to my choice, but I thought they'd only affect me." Sinea was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. "How many families?" 2,000. Teachers, firefighters, postal workers. People who trusted me with their life savings. Leon. Her voice was soft, but not accusatory. "I destroyed their futures, Sinea. While I was playing superhero at a preschool party, somewhere a nurse was getting a call telling her she can't retire because the money she'd saved for 30 years is gone." Leon stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. "You asked if I'd changed, if I was really different from the man who left. Well, here's your answer. I'm worse. The old Leon was selfish, but he honored his business commitments. This Leon puts his own happiness above everyone else's welfare." "Stop." Sinea's voice was firm. Leon turned to look at her. "You made an impossible choice in an impossible situation. You could have saved the business and lost your son forever, or you could have chosen your family and let other people suffer. There was no perfect option. That doesn't make it right." "No, it doesn't, but it makes you human." Sinea joined him at the window. "The question is, what are you going to do about it now?" Leon had been asking himself the same question for hours. "I don't know. I have no money, no assets, no way to repay what was lost. I'm legally bankrupt. I can't even get a loan to buy groceries." "So you're giving up?" "What choice do I have?" Sinea turned to face him fully. "You have the same choice you've always had, Leon. You can run away from the mess you've made, or you can stay and figure out how to fix it." Before Leon could respond, Noah stirred on the couch, mumbling something in his sleep about firefighters and cookies. Both parents automatically moved closer to their son, united in their protective instinct. "He had nightmares last night," Sinea said quietly. "After you left to sign those papers, he kept asking if you were coming back, if you were going to live far away again." "I'm not going anywhere. Promise him that, not me." Leon knelt beside the couch where Noah was sleeping. In the dim light from the desk lamp, his son looked impossibly small and vulnerable. How had Leon ever thought anything was more important than this? "I promise," Leon whispered to the sleeping child. "I'm not going anywhere ever again." Noah's eyes fluttered open. "Leon, you're still here." "I'm still here, buddy. I had a dream that you flew away like real Superman, but you forgot to take me with you." Leon's chest constricted. "That's just a dream. I'm never flying away without you again." "Promise?" "I promise." Noah smiled sleepily and closed his eyes again. Within minutes, his breathing deepened back into sleep. Sinea watched the entire exchange with an expression Leon couldn't quite read. "You mean it, don't you?" she said softly. "You really aren't going anywhere." "How can you even ask that, after everything I've put you through?" "Because I'm watching you torture yourself over people you've never met, people who have every right to hate you. The Leon who left me wouldn't have cared about their pension funds. He would have rationalized it as an acceptable cost of business." Leon returned to his chair and reopened the laptop. "I've been researching every family affected. The Brennans are just the beginning. There's a teacher in Ohio whose daughter needs surgery that insurance won't cover. Her pension was supposed to pay for it. A firefighter in Texas who was 6 months from retirement now has to work until he's 70. A nurse who was planning to help her grandchildren with college. You memorized their stories. I need to know who I hurt. I need to understand the real cost of my choices." Sinea moved behind his chair and gently placed her hands on his shoulders. The simple touch sent electricity through him, the first time she'd touched him voluntarily since his return. "This is why I fell in love with you," she said quietly. "Not because you were successful or charming or could build empires, but because underneath all that ambition you had a conscience that wouldn't let you ignore the people affected by your decisions. That conscience is what got us into this mess. No, Leon, that conscience is what's going to get us out of it." "Us?" Sinea's hands stilled on his shoulders. "I may not have forgiven you yet, and I may not trust you completely, but I'm not going to let you face this alone. Not when Noah needs you to figure out how to make this right." Leon covered one of her hands with his own. "I don't deserve your help. Probably not, but you have it anyway." They spent the next hour going through the files together, Sinea's architectural mind helping Leon organize the information in ways that revealed patterns and possibilities he'd missed. Look, she said, pointing to a spreadsheet. Most of these people aren't just facing retirement problems. They're dealing with immediate financial crises. Medical bills, college tuition due in January, mortgage payments they can't make. Which makes it worse. They need help now, not in 5 years when I might theoretically rebuild something. Or it makes it manageable. Instead of trying to replace $12 million at once, we help with the most urgent situations first. A few thousand here, a few thousand there. With what money? I told you I'm bankrupt. Sinea was quiet for a moment, then said, What about your personal assets? The cars, the watches, the art collection. All seized by creditors or tied up in litigation. Everything? Leon thought for a moment. There is one thing. I have a property in Montana that was in my name before I married you. It's not technically part of the business assets because I inherited it from my grandfather, but it's worth maybe $200,000, a drop in the bucket compared to what's needed. It's a start. Sinea, even if I sold everything I personally own, it wouldn't come close to repaying what was lost. Then we don't try to repay everything. We try to help the people who need it most right now, and we build from there. Leon stared at her. You're serious about this? Dead serious, but I have conditions. Name them. First, no more running. Whatever we do it here, together, as a family. Noah doesn't lose his father again. Agreed. Second, complete transparency. No more making decisions that affect other people without consulting the people who will be affected. That includes me, and it includes being honest with Noah about why we might have to live differently for a while. Leon nodded. What else? Third, Sinea hesitated, then continued. We do this as partners. Real partners. I help you figure out how to make amends. You help me expand my sustainable housing project. We build something together that's bigger than either of us could create alone. Leon felt something shift in his chest. Hope. Fragile but real. You want to work together? I want to create something that helps people instead of using them. I want Noah to grow up seeing his parents work together to fix their mistakes instead of running from them. Leon stood up and pulled Sinea into his arms. This time she didn't resist. Are you sure about this? He asked. It's going to be hard. We'll probably lose the house, live in a small apartment, drive used cars. You and Noah will suffer for my mistakes. We've already suffered for your mistakes, Leon. But this time we'll suffer together, working toward something meaningful. And us? What are we? Sinea looked up at him, her green eyes serious but no longer guarded. We're two people who love the same little boy enough to figure out how to be better than we were before. Everything else, we'll see. Leon kissed her forehead gently. A gesture of gratitude and hope rather than romance. So where do we start? We start with Victoria Brennan. We call her tomorrow and tell her we want to help. We can't give her back what she lost, but we can make sure her daughters finish college. Leon nodded. And then we build something new. Something that helps people instead of hurting them. Something our son can be proud of. As the sun began to rise over the city, Leon felt something he hadn't experienced in 4 years. Not hope for personal redemption, but determination to create something bigger than himself. He'd lost an empire, but he was about to build something infinitely more valuable, a life worth living. The law offices of Brennan and Associates occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower that Leon had once admired from an architectural standpoint. Now standing in the marble lobby with Sinea beside him and Noah's hand in his, Leon felt like he was entering a courtroom where he'd already been found guilty. Are you sure about bringing Noah? Sinea asked quietly as they waited for the elevator. She should see him, Leon said. She should understand that the choices I made affected real people too, including a 3-year-old who had no say in any of this. Noah looked up at him with curious eyes. Why are we visiting the sad lady, Leon? Leon had tried to explain the situation in terms a preschooler could understand. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that hurt other people, and when that happens they have to try to fix it. Because I made a mistake that made her very sad, and I want to tell her I'm sorry and try to help. Like when I broke Emma's crayon and had to give her mine. Exactly like that, buddy. Except my mistake was much bigger. The elevator opened onto a reception area that spoke of old money and established power. Victoria Brennan had built her late husband's small investment firm into one of the region's most respected financial advisory companies. The walls were lined with photos of the families they served. Retirement parties, college graduations, new homes purchased with carefully saved money. Leon felt the weight of each smiling face like a physical blow. Mrs. Brennan will see you now, the receptionist said, leading them down a hallway lined with windows that offered a commanding view of the city. Victoria's office was a study in controlled elegance. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined one wall, while her desk sat perfectly positioned to take advantage of the natural light. She stood when they entered, her posture rigid with barely contained anger. "Mr. Hargrave, I'm surprised you had the audacity to request this meeting. Mrs. Brennan, thank you for seeing us. This is Sinea and this is my son Noah." Victoria's expression softened slightly when she looked at Noah, but her voice remained cold. "I assume you're here to offer some inadequate apology and a payment plan that will take 30 years to complete." "Actually," Sinea stepped forward, "we're here to listen. We want to understand exactly what our family situation has cost yours, and we want to know how we can help immediately." Victoria's eyebrows rose slightly. She gestured for them to sit, though she remained standing behind her desk like a judge preparing to deliver a sentence. "Immediately? Mr. Hargrave, you're bankrupt. What could you possibly offer immediately?" Leon pulled out a manila folder. "I have one remaining asset, a property in Montana worth approximately $200,000. I want to sell it and use the proceeds to help the families most urgently affected by my company's collapse." $200,000? Victoria's laugh was bitter. "The pension fund lost over $12 million. You're offering to repay less than 2% of what was stolen." "We know it's not enough," Sinea said quietly, "but it's something. And Leon has identified the families facing the most immediate crises: medical emergencies, college tuition due next month, mortgage payments that can't be made. We want to help them first." Victoria studied Sinea's face. "You're serious. Dead serious. But we need your help to identify who needs it most urgently." "My help?" Victoria's voice was incredulous. "You want me to help you decide which of the families your husband destroyed should receive your charity?" Leon flinched at the word charity, but Sinea remained steady. "We want your guidance because you know these families personally. You understand their situations in ways we never could." Victoria was quiet for a long moment, her gaze moving between Leon's obvious discomfort and Sinea's determined sincerity. "Why should I trust anything you say?" Before Leon could respond, Noah spoke up from his chair. "Because Leon keeps his promises now. He said he wouldn't leave me again, and he didn't. He said he'd come to my Halloween party, and he did. He wore a Superman costume even though it was kind of silly for a grown-up." The simple honesty of a 3-year-old's perspective seemed to hit Victoria like a physical blow. Her rigid posture softened slightly. "And you think that makes up for what he did to my family?" Noah considered this with the seriousness only children bring to important questions. "No, but it means he's trying to be a good person now. Mama says when we make mistakes, we have to say sorry and then do better." Victoria looked at Leon. "Out of the mouths of babes." "Mrs. Brennan," Leon said, his voice rough with emotion, "I know I can't undo the damage I've caused. I know that saying sorry doesn't give you back what you lost. But I want to spend whatever time I have left trying to help the people I hurt." "Whatever time you have left, are you dying?" "No, but..." Leon glanced at Sinea, who nodded encouragingly. "I've realized that the life I was living before, the empire building, the wealth accumulation, the constant pursuit of more, that wasn't really living. It was just an elaborate way of avoiding what actually mattered." Victoria sat down for the first time since they'd entered. "And what actually matters, in your opinion?" Leon looked at Noah, who was quietly coloring in a book Sinea had brought to keep him occupied. "Being the kind of person your child can be proud of, building something that helps people instead of using them, proving through actions that you're worthy of the trust people place in you." "Pretty words, Mr. Hargrave. But I've heard pretty words before from men who destroyed my family's security." Sinea leaned forward. "Mrs. Brennan, what if we could show you instead of telling you? What if Leon sold everything he has left, took whatever job he could find, and spent the next 5 years putting every spare dollar toward helping the families affected by this? What if we documented every payment, every family helped, and gave you complete transparency about our progress?" Victoria studied Sinea's face. "You're talking about rebuilding $12 million on a teacher's salary and whatever work an ex-billionaire can find. That could take decades." "Then it takes decades," Sinea said simply. "The point isn't to finish quickly. The point is to prove that we won't stop trying. And what do you get out of this martyrdom? The satisfaction of feeling noble about your sacrifice?" Leon shook his head. "We get to sleep at night knowing we're doing everything we can to fix our mistakes. We get to raise our son knowing he comes from people who take responsibility for their actions. And maybe, someday, we get to feel like we've earned the right to be happy again." Victoria was quiet for several minutes, studying the folder of information Leon had prepared. Finally, she spoke. "There are 43 families facing immediate financial crisis due to your bankruptcy, medical emergencies, college tuition, mortgage defaults. Your $200,000 would help maybe 8 of them. Then we help 8 families and keep working until we can help the rest. This is insane. You're talking about impoverishing yourselves for decades to help strangers. They're not strangers, Leon said quietly. They're people who trusted me with their futures. That makes them my responsibility. Victoria opened a desk drawer and pulled out a thick file. Sarah Martinez, teacher in Phoenix. Her daughter needs surgery for a brain tumor. Insurance covers 60%, but the family needs $40,000 immediately for the procedure. Leon nodded, making a note. Robert Chen, firefighter in San Diego, $15,000 behind on his mortgage. Facing foreclosure next month. He's got 3 kids under 10. Another note. Jennifer Walsh. Wait. Victoria looked up sharply. Jennifer Walsh. That name sounds familiar. She was at Noah's Halloween party, Sinea said. Her daughter Emma is in Noah's class. She told Leon he was good at the dad thing. Victoria stared at them. Jennifer Walsh lost her husband in a car accident 6 months ago. She's a nurse working double shifts to support her 2 children. Her pension fund was her safety net, and now it's gone. She doesn't know yet that she won't be able to afford Emma's daycare next month. The room fell silent. Leon felt sick thinking about the woman who'd been kind to him, who'd praised his parenting, not knowing that he was the reason her financial security had vanished. We help her first, Leon said immediately. And the others? We help them all, in order of urgency. It might take 20 years, but we help them all. Victoria closed the file and studied Leon's face for a long moment. You really mean it. I really mean it. And you're prepared to give up any chance of rebuilding your fortune to do this? Leon looked at Noah, who had finished coloring and was now building a tower out of paper clips from Victoria's desk. I already found something worth more than any fortune. Victoria followed his gaze to the small boy who was quietly narrating an elaborate story about his paperclip construction project. All right, she said finally. I'll help you, but I have conditions. Name them. First, complete financial transparency. I see every dollar you earn, every dollar you spend, every payment you make. No hidden assets, no secret accounts. Agreed. Second, you work with a financial counselor. I choose to ensure you're living as modestly as possible while maximizing what goes to restitution. Agreed. Third, if you ever, and I mean ever, try to rebuild a business empire instead of focusing on this repayment, our agreement ends, and I pursue legal action for the remaining balance. Leon nodded without hesitation. Agreed. Victoria stood up and extended her hand. Then let's begin the long road back. As Leon shook her hand, he felt something he hadn't experienced since his return. Not hope for redemption, but the solid ground of purpose beneath his feet. There's one more thing, Victoria said as they prepared to leave. I want to meet with you monthly in person to review your progress. And I want Noah to come with you. Why? Sinea asked. Victoria's expression softened as she looked at Noah, who was showing her his paperclip tower. Because I want to watch him grow up knowing that his father is a man who keeps his promises, no matter how hard they are to keep. The world needs more children who believe that's possible. As they left the office building, Noah skipped between them, chattering about the nice lady who let him play with her paperclips. That went better than expected, Sine said quietly. Did it? We just committed to decades of debt repayment. Yes, but we committed together, as a team. Leon stopped walking and turned to face her fully. Sinea, are you sure about this? Really sure? Because once we start down this path, there's no going back to the easy life. Sinea looked at him with clear, steady eyes. Leon, I've been living the easy life for 4 years. It's incredibly boring. I'm ready to build something that matters. As they walked toward the car, Leon felt his phone buzz with a text message. For the first time in weeks, he looked at it immediately. Not because business called, but because he wondered if it might be one of the families they were committed to helping. It wasn't. It was Rebecca, his former assistant. Saw the news about your bankruptcy. I'm sorry, Leon. You built something amazing even if it ended badly. Whatever you do next, I know it will be remarkable. Leon showed the message to Sinea, who smiled. She's right, you know. Whatever we build next will be remarkable because this time we're building it for the right reasons. As they drove home to start their new life, Leon realized that losing everything had given him something priceless. The chance to discover what he was actually capable of when he stopped trying to impress the world and started trying to improve it. 6 months later, Leon stood in the cramped kitchen of their 2-bedroom apartment, making pancakes while Noah sat at their second-hand table, carefully writing thank you cards to the families they'd helped. The Montana property had sold, and true to his word, Leon had used every penny to help 8 families through their most urgent crises. Sarah Martinez's daughter had gotten her surgery. Robert Chen had saved his house. Jennifer Walsh could afford daycare for another year. But the real test was coming today. Daddy, how do you spell grateful? Noah asked, his tongue poking out in concentration as he gripped his crayon. Daddy. The word still made Leon's chest swell with emotion, even after Noah had been saying it for 3 months. Grateful, Leon spelled out, flipping a pancake that was only slightly burned around the edges. Sinea emerged from their shared bedroom. They'd been sleeping in the same bed for 2 weeks now, though they hadn't officially discussed what that meant, wearing her best dress and the nervous expression she got before important meetings. The investors will be here at 10, she said, accepting the coffee Leon handed her. Are you ready for this? Leon looked around their small apartment. 6 months ago, he'd lived in a penthouse suite and owned properties on 3 continents. Now he worked construction during the day and drove for a delivery service at night, every spare dollar going toward restitution payments. They shopped at thrift stores, cooked meals at home, and their entertainment budget consisted of library books and playground visits. He'd never been happier in his life. I'm ready, he said. The question is, are they ready for us? Today was the day they'd been working toward since that meeting with Victoria Brennan. Sinea had spent months developing her sustainable housing project, affordable, environmentally friendly homes designed for working families. Leon had used his architectural knowledge to help refine the plans, and together they'd created something revolutionary, housing that cost half the market rate while providing twice the energy efficiency. The doorbell rang, and Leon felt his stomach tighten. These weren't just any investors, they were representatives from the Brennan Family Foundation, the charitable organization Victoria had established using her late husband's life insurance money. I'll get it, Noah announced, running to the door. Let Mama get it, buddy, Leon said gently. Sinea opened the door to reveal Victoria Brennan, accompanied by 2 men in expensive suits who looked slightly uncomfortable in the modest apartment building hallway. Victoria, Sinea said warmly. Thank you for coming. Wouldn't miss it. Leon, Noah. Victoria had softened considerably over the past 6 months, their monthly meetings evolving from suspicious interrogations to genuine collaboration. These are David Kim from Sustainable Development Partners and Marcus Williams from Green Future Capital. The men entered, their eyes taking in the modest apartment with obvious surprise. Leon could practically see them wondering how someone living in such basic circumstances could possibly have a business proposal worth their time. Gentlemen, Leon said, extending his hand, thank you for considering our project. Frankly, Mr. Hargrave, David Kim said, we're here as a favor to Mrs. Brennan. Your bankruptcy made international news. What makes you think anyone would trust you with investment capital again? Noah looked up from his thank you cards. Because Leon always keeps his promises now. He helped 8 families even though it made us poor. The simple statement from a 3-year-old hung in the air like a challenge. Noah's right, Victoria said. Leon has made every restitution payment exactly when promised, despite working 70-hour weeks at jobs that pay a fraction of what he once earned. He's proven that his word means something now. Marcus Williams studied Leon's face. The proposal you sent is impressive. Affordable housing with net zero environmental impact. But the profit margins are so thin, we'd barely break even. That's the point, Sinea said, setting up her laptop on their small dining table. This isn't about maximizing profit. It's about creating sustainable communities that working families can actually afford. She pulled up the presentation they'd spent months perfecting. Architectural plans, environmental impact studies, financial projections that prioritized social benefit over investor returns. Current housing developments focus on luxury features that inflate costs, Leon explained. We've eliminated everything unnecessary and focused on quality, efficiency, and livability. But why would investors choose minimal profits over maximum returns? David asked. Leon and Sinea exchanged a look. This was the moment they'd prepared for, the question that would determine whether their vision could become reality. Because, Leon said, some things are worth more than money. He pulled out a folder filled with letters, dozens of them, handwritten on various types of paper. These are from the families we've helped with restitution payments. Sarah Martinez's daughter sent us a drawing of herself after her surgery, healthy and smiling. Robert Chen invited us to his son's birthday party because, quote, you saved our home. Jennifer Walsh wrote to tell us that her daughter Emma talks about Noah every day, and that knowing there are people like us in the world gives her hope. Leon's voice grew stronger as he continued. 6 months ago, I thought success meant having more than everyone else. Now I know success means lifting everyone up with you. Marcus Williams was studying the letters, his expression thoughtful. These are remarkable. This housing project isn't just about building homes, Sinea added. It's about proving that business can be a force for good, that we can create value for investors while creating hope for families. Victoria stepped forward. Gentlemen, I've watched this family for 6 months. I've seen them choose integrity over comfort, purpose over profit again and again. The question isn't whether they can deliver on their promises. It's whether we have the courage to invest in a different kind of success. David and Marcus huddled quietly for several minutes while Leon, Sinea, and Noah waited. Noah returned to his thank you cards, apparently unconcerned about the outcome. We have concerns, David said finally. Leon's heart sank. The profit margins are indeed minimal. The construction timeline is ambitious, and frankly, your recent bankruptcy makes this a significant risk. However, Marcus continued, the social impact potential is extraordinary, and Mrs. Brennan's foundation specializes in high-impact, low-profit investments. What are you saying? Sinea asked. We're saying yes, David smiled. Conditional on a few modifications to the business structure, we're prepared to fund phase 1 of your sustainable housing project. The room erupted in celebration. Noah jumped up from his chair, not fully understanding what had happened but sensing the excitement. Sinea burst into tears of relief and joy. Victoria smiled with the satisfaction of someone whose faith had been justified. But Leon felt something different. Not the triumph of victory, but the quiet satisfaction of purpose fulfilled. There's one more thing, Marcus said as the celebration settled down. We want Leon to be the project manager. Leon blinked in surprise. I'm not sure you understand. I'm currently working construction and driving delivery trucks. I'm not exactly executive material anymore. Actually, Victoria interjected, that's exactly why you're perfect for this job. You understand what it means to work hard for modest pay. You know what working families need because you are a working family now. The question is, David added, are you willing to take on the responsibility? Because managing this project means being accountable not just to investors but to every family who will eventually live in these homes. Leon looked at Sinea, who nodded encouragingly. Then he looked at Noah, who was watching him with complete faith that his daddy would make the right choice. I'm willing, Leon said, but only if Sinea is my co-manager. This project is as much hers as mine. Deal, Marcus said, extending his hand. As the investors left with promises to send contracts by the end of the week, Leon found himself alone with his family in their small apartment. Outside the window, the city buzzed with its usual energy, but inside their home everything felt perfectly still and right. We did it, Sinea said softly, curling up beside him on their second-hand couch. No, we're just getting started. Noah climbed into Leon's lap, bringing his finished thank you cards. I wrote one for you too, he said shyly, handing Leon a piece of construction paper covered in careful crayon letters. Dear Daddy Leon, Leon read aloud. Thank you for coming back and not leaving again. Thank you for helping sad families. Thank you for making pancakes and reading stories and teaching me to swim. Thank you for being my daddy. Love, Noah. Leon's throat was too tight to speak. He pulled Noah closer, breathing in the scent of crayons and childhood that had become his favorite perfume. There's something else, Sinea said quietly. Something I've been waiting for the right moment to tell you. Leon looked at her, noting the nervous excitement in her voice. I'm pregnant. The words hit Leon like lightning. You're, what? About 2 months. I found out last week, but I wanted to wait until we knew about the investors before. Leon silenced her with a kiss that tasted like tears and pancakes and the promise of forever. Are you happy? Sinea asked when they broke apart. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. Leon looked around their modest apartment, at the hand-me-down furniture, the crayon drawings on the refrigerator, the stack of bills on the counter next to Noah's thank you cards. 6 months ago, I had everything the world says matters. Now I have everything that actually matters. Even though we'll be broke for the foreseeable future. Especially because we'll be broke for the foreseeable future. It means we're doing something right. Noah, who had been listening with the intense focus children bring to important conversations, looked up at Leon. So I'm going to be a big brother? Yes, buddy. How do you feel about that? Noah considered this seriously. Will the baby know you're our daddy? Or will we have to teach them? Leon's heart swelled with love for this thoughtful, generous child, who worried about including others in the family he'd waited so long to have. The baby will know, Leon said, because I'm never going anywhere ever again, that's a promise. Pinky promise? Leon extended his little finger and hooked it around Noah's. Pinky promise. As evening settled over their small apartment, Leon found himself thinking about the strange mathematics of his new life. He'd lost billions and gained everything. He'd destroyed an empire and found a purpose. He'd fallen from the heights of financial success to the depths of ordinary life, and discovered that ordinary life was the greatest privilege of all. His phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca, his former assistant. Saw the news about your housing project. Congratulations, Leon. The world needs more people like who you've become. Leon smiled and turned off the phone. Tomorrow he would start building homes for families who needed them. Tonight he was exactly where he belonged, in a modest apartment with his pregnant wife, his son, and the certainty that he had finally learned the difference between having everything and being everything he was meant to be. Outside the window the city lights sparkled like stars, each one representing a life being lived, a family working toward their dreams, a story of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Leon Hargrave had once tried to own those lights. Now he was content to be one of them. 3 years and 4 months later, the sound of children's laughter echoed across the Meadowbrook community, the first completed phase of Leon and Sinea's sustainable housing project. Leon stood on the front porch of what had once been just blueprints and dreams, watching Noah teach his 2-year-old sister Sophia how to ride a tricycle on the safe, tree-lined street they'd designed together. "Daddy, watch me," Noah called out, now 6 years and 2 months old and brimming with the confidence of a child who had never doubted his father's presence. "I'm teaching Sophia to be brave like you taught me." Leon's heart swelled as he watched his son patiently guide his sister, small hands steady on the handlebars, voice gentle with encouragement. This was Noah's world now, a place where fathers stayed, where families helped each other, where community meant something real. The final inspection report came in, Sinea said, emerging from their modest but beautiful 3-bedroom home with baby Michael on her hip. At 8 months old, their youngest had Leon's dark hair and Sinea's green eyes, and a smile that could light up entire rooms. "And?" Leon asked, though Sinea's expression already told him the answer. "Perfect scores across the board. Energy efficiency exceeds projections by 12%. Construction quality rated superior and resident satisfaction is 98%. Sinea's smile was radiant. "We did it, Leon. We actually did it." Leon pulled his wife close, breathing in the scent of her hair and the sweet baby smell of their youngest son. 3 years and 4 months ago, he'd been signing bankruptcy papers in a hotel room. Today, they'd proven that affordable, sustainable housing wasn't just possible. It was profitable, scalable, and life-changing. "The residents want to throw a celebration," Sinea continued. "A community barbecue to mark the official completion of Phase 1. Speaking of residents." Leon nodded toward the street where a familiar figure was walking toward them. Jennifer Walsh approached with her daughter Emma, Noah's first friend, skipping beside her. Jennifer looked different from the stressed single mother Leon remembered from the Halloween party. Living in Meadowbrook had given her something she'd been missing: security, community, hope. "Leon, Sinea," Jennifer called out. "Perfect timing. Emma has something she wants to ask Noah." The children ran off together, their conversation animated with the serious business of playground politics, while Jennifer joined Leon and Sinea on the porch. "I wanted to thank you both again," Jennifer said, "not just for the restitution money that helped us through those first awful months, but for this." She gestured toward the community around them. "Emma has never been happier, and I finally feel like I can breathe again." "How's the nursing program going?" Sinea asked. "I graduate next month, and thanks to the childcare center you built into the community design, I was able to study while Emma was safe and happy just down the street." This had been one of Sinea's innovations, integrating essential services into the housing development so that working parents didn't have to choose between career and family. "We're the ones who should be thanking you," Leon said. "You believed in this project before we'd even broken ground. That meant everything." Jennifer smiled. "Hard not to believe in people who prove every day that they keep their promises." As Jennifer left to collect Emma for dinner, Victoria Brennan's car pulled into the small parking area designated for visitors. She emerged carrying a familiar manila folder and wearing an expression Leon had learned to associate with good news. "Monthly report time?" Leon asked. "Final report time," Victoria corrected, climbing the porch steps. "As of today, you've officially completed restitution payments to all 43 affected families." The words hit Leon like a physical blow. 3 years, 4 months, and 12 days since that devastating meeting in Victoria's office. 3 years of 70-hour work weeks, careful budgeting, and every spare dollar going toward making amends. "All of them?" Sinea asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Every single family. Full restitution plus interest." Victoria's formal tone gave way to genuine warmth. "Leon, when you first walked into my office, I thought you were just another wealthy man trying to buy his way out of guilt. I was wrong. I had a lot of help," Leon said, looking at Sinea. "Yes, but you made the choice to accept that help instead of running away again. That made all the difference." Victoria opened the folder and pulled out a document. This is the official completion certificate from the Brennan Family Foundation. You are hereby released from all restitution obligations. Leon stared at the paper, feeling the weight of 3 years lifting from his shoulders. But instead of relief, he felt something unexpected, a sense of loss. What's wrong? Sinea asked, reading his expression. It's just, this work helping those families, it gave my life meaning. Without it, I'm not sure. Leon, Victoria interrupted gently. Do you really think your work helping families is over? She gestured toward the community around them. Children playing safely in the streets, parents chatting on front porches, gardens growing in carefully planned green spaces. You've created something that will help families for generations. Phase 2 of Meadowbrook is already being planned, and 3 other cities have requested proposals for similar projects. Your real work is just beginning. As if summoned by their conversation, Noah came running up the porch steps, his face flushed with excitement from playing. Daddy, Emma says her mama is going to be a nurse now, and Mrs. Chen is going to college because her kids are safe at the community center. And Mr. Martinez is teaching other daddies how to fix things because he learned from watching you work. Leon knelt down to Noah's level. That's wonderful, buddy. And you know what else? Everyone says this is the best place they've ever lived because you and Mama made it special for families. Out of the mouths of babes. Leon felt tears pricking at his eyes as he realized that his son had just articulated something he'd been struggling to understand. That success wasn't about what you achieved for yourself, but what you made possible for others. There's something else, Victoria said as they prepared to go inside for dinner. The Brennan Family Foundation wants to fund Phase 3 of your project, a community specifically designed for elderly residents who want to age in place while staying connected to families. Leon and Sinea exchanged a look of excitement and terror. That would be incredible, Sinea said. But the complexity would be enormous. Leon finished. The design challenges alone would push you both to create something even more innovative than what you've already built, Victoria completed. The question is, are you ready for the next challenge? Leon looked around at his family, Noah now carrying baby Michael while chattering to Emma about his baby brother, Sinea, watching them both with the serene confidence of a woman who knew she was exactly where she belonged. 3 years ago, Leon had measured his worth by the size of his bank account and the reach of his empire. Tonight he measured it by the laughter of children playing safely in the street, the trust in his wife's eyes, and the certainty that tomorrow he would wake up and continue building something that mattered. We're ready, he said. As the sun set over Meadowbrook, painting the sustainable homes in golden light, Leon felt his phone buzz with a text. For a moment, old habits made him tense. Would this be another crisis requiring his immediate attention? But it was Noah's teacher, Miss Sarah, sending a photo from the school's career day. Noah standing proudly next to a poster he'd made titled, My Daddy Builds Homes for Families. Leon showed the photo to Sinea, who smiled through happy tears. Remember when you asked me if I thought you'd changed? She said softly. I remember. Look around, Leon. This community, these families, the man our children call Daddy. You didn't just change. You became everything you were always meant to be. That night, after the children were asleep and the community had settled into peaceful quiet, Leon and Sinea sat on their front porch, planning Phase 3 and dreaming about the families they would help next. In the distance, they could hear the sounds of their neighborhood, televisions murmuring behind windows, parents calling children inside for baths, the ordinary symphony of people living ordinary lives in extraordinary security. Leon had once owned skyscrapers that touched the clouds. Now he owned something infinitely more valuable, the knowledge that he had helped create a place where children could grow up safe, where parents could sleep peacefully, where families could thrive. Any regrets? Sinea asked as they prepared to go inside. Leon looked at the modest home they'd built together, thought about the billionaire lifestyle he'd left behind, and smiled. Just one. What's that? I wish I'd figured all this out sooner. As they turned off the porch light and headed inside to their family, Leon realized that he'd finally answered the question that had haunted him for years. What was the point of building an empire if you had no one to share it with? The answer was simple. You didn't build an empire at all. You built a home, and then you helped everyone else build theirs too. Looking back on Leon's journey from billionaire to bankruptcy to true success, one question remains. When faced with the choice between what the world values and what actually matters, would you have the courage to choose love over money, presence over power, and community over conquest? Share your thoughts below. Your participation means everything to our channel. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.